Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. This is session 2 of our 4-part series on SAD programming. And today we're going to talk about, is it worth the risk? And again, I have with me Chris Dzurick, who is our coordinator for our Missouri SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Certainly.
So Chris, tell us a little bit about the program that's called, Is It Worth the Risk?
Yeah. So Is It Worth the Risk is another one of SAD's nationwide peer-to-peer programs, and this one really focuses on education related to underage drinking. And if you attended our session yesterday, you heard some very similar stuff about peer ed and involving all of our community and our parents and our schools, and that's really what Is It Worth the Risk is going to do as well. This one is just focused on underage drinking instead of seatbelt usage, as you learned in Rock the Belt yesterday. So underage drinking, of course, as you all know, continues to be a problem. About 36% of all traffic-related deaths for 15 to 20-year-olds. And I mean, these are our high school students, our students going directly into college and continuing their education. That's 36% of our deaths are related to alcohol when it comes to traffic safety. And that's a terrifying statistic when you realize that's over a third of all automobile accidents being alcohol related. Additionally, the use of alcohol at a young age does expose students to other risky and potentially destructive behaviors. And SAD, of course, is Students Against Destructive Decisions. So we really want to highlight the physical and emotional abuse that can occur. There are, of course, negative thoughts that can happen, sexual mistakes. It's a very risky area to be in when we talk about underage drinking. So is it worth the risk is all focused on trying to prevent all of that, all of our underage drinking, and of course, the consequences that come with then driving while drinking and engaging in other risky behaviors while drinking alcohol. It also focuses on what really happens emotionally. So it goes beyond just the physical damage, but the emotional damage that underage drinking can cause when we're talking about our youth and of course, then their future and what is at stake when it comes to drinking under the age. There are 2 main programs built into Is It Worth the Risk? And these are again found in our SAD toolkit. And when you become an active SAD chapter, you have access to the detailed explanations and the full walkthroughs of how to do all of the activities that we're talking about in this series this week. The main program inside of Is It Worth the Risk is a role play or a docudrama, essentially, of what really happens when students are engaging in underage drinking. So this requires you to involve students within your school, maybe a drama department, our theater department, and your SAD members to really showcase the real life consequences of underage drinking. SAD will provide you with a full script on how to do this with all of the cues, and it really walks students through basically a scenario related when that event goes awry. And the consequences and actions that are taken during that whole process. So it is a docudrama role play kind of skit that walks through basically a party. Additionally, the way that this program is developed is not to just be a skit, a one and done, but it's meant to engage the community. So this is going to ask you to then bring in medical advisors and lawyers, law enforcement, to really talk about the consequences that go beyond just what you saw in the skit, in the role play. It really talks about what can happen with losing scholarships or getting kicked off of sports teams. It can talk about misdemeanors and felonies that can follow you for the rest of your life. So it's really going to highlight everything that's actually happening. And that's what really makes this unique. And there are guides to inviting these individuals and talking points that they may be able to bring up that are going to set this event apart from maybe just a traditional kind of speech style event. And this also then has you engaging your community and building out committees to make this entire event happen. The other main program built in is a prom campaign. This can also take the form of a graduation campaign, so that after prom, after graduation style kind of thing. The prom campaign encourages you, though, to reach out to businesses around the prom time to really focus on not serving minors or not allowing minors to be in facilities that might allow them to engage in underage drinking. So think about restaurants and bars that students may be frequenting before or after prom, hotels where they may be able to go unsupervised and drink in that hotel room instead of going back to their parents' home. Maybe a limousine company. We know many students are renting limousines and other larger vehicles, making sure that those companies understand that they need to be watching those students and making sure they're very, very aware of the risks of underage drinking. So this has you sending letters to those individuals and asking them to participate in not engaging students in underage drinking. So that means not serving those minors, making sure students, sign things to not drink while they're in those limousines, to reach out to those hotels and ask them either not to rent rooms to those youth or to check on those rooms or require an adult, to check in those rooms, whatever is happening there, making sure that we are protecting our youth and not permitting them to engage in that kind of behavior. Additionally, there's a side of this that goes to parents, that has parents having conversations and asking their students not to engage in that kind of risky behavior, and having that conversation about not only the legal and the health consequences, but the parental consequences of engaging in that kind of behavior, setting those limits, setting that understanding of what would happen if you were to engage in underage drinking. And then, of course, finally, there are campaign cards that can be signed at prom where students pledge to not engage in that risky behavior. And there are templates, once again, for all of these kinds of conversations, all of these letters, all built into the toolkit for Is It Worth the Risk? There are other advocacy activities that are built into this program to, again, continue to engage the media and business and the whole community. One of them is an elementary outreach program, and this is talking to young students about the dangers of alcohol at a much younger age, and really focusing on how that poor decision making can affect your future life. There are brochures and flyers and everything that are made available for this outreach, but we know that when we engage younger and younger students in the conversation and we build those competencies and those skills in younger students, they're considerably less likely to engage in risky behavior when they get older. And it's also helpful for these elementary students to see high school students that are speaking out against underage drinking, that are saying, this isn't who we are, this isn't who you want us to be. This is really talking about your future. When you're talking to these elementary students, they need to see their role models. They need to see the quarterback of the football team and the president of the theater club on campus. They need to see those students saying, we don't engage in this, and we're your role models. You shouldn't when the time comes that you're where we are. The other program for advocacy built in is called Chain of Life, and this is about media exposure by asking students in your school to sign pieces of paper, basically pledging that they won't engage in underage drinking, and then you connect all of these to build a chain of life. Now, this can be done kind of like how they have those countdowns to the holidays, where you have all those looped circles of paper connected. You can do them as you see on the background of this very slide, where they're actual people, and they're all connected holding hands. You can color code these by school grade, and you can see, K through 12, how many students are saying we won't engage in this kind of behavior, or you can have them added to as events come to your school, as you have the end of summer, beginning of school, students signing them, homecoming, going home for the holidays, prom and graduation and court warming, all of those events. You can interconnect them by color, and you can just show how big of an impact you have event by event. When you are building these, whether it's a one and done for a certain function or you're making it a year long, it's a great way to invite your mayor and legislators and the media to engage in that program and see just how big of an impact it can have when students are committed to saying no. That wraps up our introduction to Is It Worth the Risk, SAD's Underage Drinking Prevention Program. So appreciate you all joining us today. We'll have a live Q&A at the end of the week where you can ask more questions about the program. But as always, my contact information is here on the slide. Happy to engage with you in dialogue and help bring Is It Worth the Risk to your school.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of having a state coordinator is we talked a little bit the last one about COVID and how we had to pivot a lot, and the guidance that the state coordinator can give too, because last year we actually had to pivot and we did our docudrama online and videoed it and did the entire thing that way. So that's just one example of how these programs can be adapted to whatever situation that you have going on at the time.
Yep, certainly. And we're happy to help you make those modifications to these programs and bring something like that role play or docudrama to your school social media to even expand the reach further than if you had, maybe done it on campus, given whatever restrictions there could possibly be. So we're here to help, both Alicia and I, so please never hesitate to reach out to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me, Chris, and I'll see you for video number 3.
Sounds good. Thank you.